All right, example 3. Write down the first 5 terms of each sequence. So these are a little bit different, but you still approach them in the same way as before. Just start plugging in 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 5. Oh, and somebody's up this morning. I don't know if you could hear my daughter, but she's not too happy at the moment. Okay, so plug in 1, so -1 to the first is -1. -1 to the second is a +1. -1 to the third, negative, and hey, we kind of got a little pattern here, so that'll finish it. Moving on to this one, you're plugging in numbers for n, not any other letter. So this x is going to stay as an x. So if you plugged in n equals 1, you just get x. N equals 2, x squared over 2. N equals 3. X to the third over 3 factorial, which is 6. N equals 4. X to the fourth for 4 factorial, which is 24. And then finally for n equals 5, x to the fifth over 5 factorial, which is 120. All right, now we're going to go backwards. So they gave you the sequence, the list of numbers, and now you got to figure out, okay, well, what was that general that nth term? So what was it? Was it something like this? Was it something like that? What was it? So let's look at them. Going from 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that would just be n. And you can always check it to see if it's right. Plug in 1, 2, 3, and 4, and hey, we got that list out. Okay, part B. You have a half, 2/3, 3/4, 4/5. So that looks like it's going to be n over n plus 1. Because if n is 1, you get 1 over 2. If n is 2, you get 2/3, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's look at this one. What's happening here? Well, it looks like they're all just sort of multiples of 2. So it's like you keep multiplying a 2 in there, so like the next number would be 16 and then 32. So it's like 2 times 2 times 2. So it's really like 2 with an exponent on it. So 2 to the something. Well, I want to make sure that when I plug in 1 for n, I get 1 as an answer. So I need my exponent on the 2 to actually be a 0. I need it to look like that. Well, if I just have it as 2 to the n, if I plug in 1, that's 2 to the first. Well, I want it to be 2 to the 0, so I have to subtract 1. So it's going to be 2 to the n minus 1. All right, part D. I kind of have the same thing happening. Instead of multiples of 2, though, it's multiples of a half. So the 1/2 to the, and I'm supposed to get 1 as my answer again. So 1/2 to the n minus 1. All right, part E. This is really similar to what we just previously did in example 3. So then it should still be somewhat similar. It's just, if you notice that the pattern's different, in example 3, -1 was our first term. Well, now the +1 is our first term. So the signs are all flip-flopped. So I can't have the exact same thing. It can't be just n. But if I make it n minus 1, that'll make it work. Because if n is 1, I'm going to get 1. If n is 2, I get -1, and so on and so forth. All right, part F. So this is increasing, like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, kind of like part A, but it's alternating in sign, just like this one did. This one alternating in sign. In example 3A, it alternating in sign as well. So this -1 term, or this -1 thing in here, that's going to get your signs to alternate. And depending on which way you want it to alternate, it will tell you which one of these two to pick. So we want our first number to be positive. Well, if you look at these two sequences, which one gave you a number that was positive first? This one. This one came out as a negative. So if that was a negative and then a positive, then I'm going to go with that one. But if it's positive and then negative, I'm going to go with this. So this is going to be in there. And then since it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm going to attach the N as well. Okay, we're going to do these last two because they're a little bit tricky. So here, it is alternating, but not in sign. It's just flipping from like a whole number to a fraction, a whole number to fraction, whole number to fraction. So all the even numbers have been flipped upside down. You've taken the reciprocal. All the odds have stayed exactly the same. So it's going to be n. Well, I need it to flip upside down. I need to take the reciprocal. Well, the only thing that does that is a negative exponent. Because like 2 to the -1, that's a half. So I need that exponent to have a -1 on it to flip it. But I only want it to happen on the evens. So I need my exponent to have it alternate in sign. So I want it to be positive when I first start it. And then the second one would be negative. The third is positive. The fourth is negative. So it needs to go positive, negative, up in that exponent. So just like this. So n to the -1 to the n minus 1. So you have two tiers of exponents happening. All right, and then part H, now it's kind of the reverse. It's the odd numbers that have flipped. This first one, 1, that's still like 1/1. So in my exponent, I don't want it to be the exact same thing because I want my first number to be negative. So I'm going to go with this to alternate it in the way I want. Okay, so that's kind of a way to go backwards with them. So just a little bit of kind of logic and ingenuity, and just trying stuff out. So in the next video, we'll hit example 5 and some other stuff.